This piece was inspired by a New York Times article describing two people's Parkinson's experience. Generally resonating, it did highlight for me, however, how different we all are, how different we perceive this disease, and how different outcomes can be depending almost entirely on our own inputs. You are not one of 10 million people, you are one of one, but you have a community of people as large or as small as you'd like. You are you, and finding and being you will be one of the best medicines you will taste. When you're truly you, you set yourself up to be happy. As importantly, you set up others around you to be the same. When you're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, it literally takes years to figure out what you're dealing with and how you're going to handle it. It's almost like a rebirth, and then it all changes again. I was diagnosed in 2008, about the same time that Wall Street realized its mortgages were junk. I learned the same of my substantia nigra. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't have any answers, but I knew I would need to find them pretty quickly. We're given some guidance on living with the disease, but I've come to understand that most of the recommendations, for me anyway, are wrong. We want to go back to normal. We want to be fixed, cured. We finally remember the old life as being better than it actually was. Life is increasingly harder now, but adversity is the equivalent to a Harvard professor without all the grandiose. This new adversity is hard, but it's still a better life than that of so many around the world. If they can live an entire life under such adverse conditions, surely I can handle a partial life this way. Enlightenment is seeded by adversity. Enlightenment is never cheap, but it's always worth it. Yes, adversity is painful, but what good is it to bemoan? How does that benefit me or anybody else? We can learn to focus on the light, never denying the darkness, but understanding that perhaps it's not lit for a reason. So instead of feeling weak and disabled, we can feel empowered and awake. We know how it feels to suffer, and we seek to dismantle it whenever possible. I've become a vigilant advocate for equitable access to health care for all, especially the poor and marginalized. Instead of feeling helpless and abandoned, we can leverage the opportunities we do have for common good. I selected the company that would insert their products in my brain based on which company is a better corporate citizen to the world. The company then invited me to speak to 700 employees in San Diego.
Other gatherings are predominantly white on white. Boards of directors are white on white. This room, we don't even notice anymore.
Impacting corporate culture is extremely hard. Maybe I finally have some tools to do it. Exercise is extremely beneficial for coping with symptoms. Rather than accepting instructions as provided, I wanted to give instructions to others in my community. I became a personal trainer specializing in encouraging those with Parkinson's to become much more active. Who better to understand my people than one of their own people? When COVID curtailed my ability to connect through movement, I realized I could connect through mowing. Rather than allowing Parkinson's to halt yard work, I used it to launch yard work across the area.
A pandemic is not the best time to start a new business.
We respond to it like, okay, this is our time to lead.
Gavin Mogan isn't like most people.
Hey, I'm competing with teenagers, and that's hard because their prices are low. So my offer is like, hey, but watch us, We're a spectacle.
To me, I walk normal like everybody else.
Charles Tillman has cerebral palsy.
Fatigue, tremor, stiffness, that's my biggest thing, is stiffness. Exercise is vital to fighting off the symptoms.
A sense of acceptance, a sense of like I'm not the only one by myself in this.
People with Parkinson's are discouraged from traveling, too big of a hassle. But I was moved to visit Uganda to better understand access to Parkinson's care across the world. I returned a changed man, now obsessed with helping to create better systems of care for PD in low-income countries like Uganda. I love basketball. I love it more than ever. I'm 51 years old, and truthfully, I've never been a better shooter. I held a day-long three-point shooting marathon to raise money for Uganda. I made 3,000 three-pointers in 21 hours. I wasn't supposed to love those last few hours, but I did. I have even more passion for playing and following baseball. Neither sport shows up in any lists of those recommended for people with Parkinson's, unless you see my list. Starting to spot a trend here? Parkinson's is a very interesting condition. It's supposed to require a great deal of medical care, but I find myself a pretty good healthcare resource at this point. I'm my own laboratory 24/7, partly for my own benefit, more so to benefit those whose Parkinson's struggles exceed mine. As adversity builds, so do we. In fact, resilience cannot grow without adversity sparking it. Desire to shine light on a dark world can almost become addictive. Anything to avoid the dark side of this disease ourself. Luckily for me anyway, there's an entire world in need of hope. Most of all, things that cause suffering build awareness of others' suffering. When tuned into this channel, you've never felt so tuned in to God, never felt so one with all. Oneness, wholeness. Wholeness is happiness. Happiness is never down the path we thought we would find it.